We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
President Joe Biden is under pressure regarding his son's business dealings and new evidence showing that he was intimately involved. And former President Trump facing more legal woes that just seem to increase by the week. Now, is there any way the next general election can run smoothly? To help us wade into these murky depths, we're fortunate to be joined by Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor and the host of the superb Uprising podcast, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza, Esquire. Thanks for being here, Scott.
And I'm now tearing it up on Twitter, Mark, or X as well. So please don't forget.
He has three Twitter accounts, formerly known as Twitter accounts. That's triple X Scott D. Cosenza, apparently.
Don't you dare.
Okay, the social media platform formerly known as X. Yes, you can check out the Uprising podcast on there, and it's kind of fantastic. So I do recommend you head over and follow Scott. Now, Scott, let's talk about the legal shenanigans. The novel legal shenanigans that are facing our two most likely presidential candidates for 2024. Now, I do hate to use the term unprecedented, Scott, for as the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. But surely this predicament that we're looking at, as in both leading candidates facing legal jeopardy, that's pretty novel, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is certainly novel, Mark. And while I was asking you to plug my now formerly Twitter and now X profile at Podcast Uprising, I don't know that I said thank you for having me once again on the show, so I'll do that now. And we've got really Trump is the one facing the mountain of legal burden, and the reason why, of course, is because it's Biden and his allies that control the levers of who is subject to, who gets the boot put on them is who owns the
It's
heel,
worth repeating again, and again, Scott. And I learned this from you. Every prosecution is a political decision. It's just worth repeating that again and again.
Yeah. The decision to prosecute is political. It's baked into it. Not the decision to prosecute Donald Trump is political. The decision to prosecute the guy down the street caught with the whatever is political, right? What are we valuing? There was a time in our society where we did not value prosecuting people with, drugs on them, right? Before the drug war arose in the 60s and 70s, we just, it was not a priority. So why did it become a priority? Well, because the politics changed. And the same is true now with respect to Donald Trump. The people who have the means of prosecution are more closely allied with Joe Biden and Democrats, and so they're exercising that. And
so if you can, could you give me a quick rundown of this mountain of legal challenges that Donald Trump's facing?
So there are civil cases and criminal cases, and there's a state fraud trial in New York in October on I think that's about some business fraud that has been alleged by New York authorities. Now, this is it's kind of interesting because I think typically we think of civil cases occurring between private parties, but also the government can bring civil cases against defendants. And so it's actually, even though it's in the civil courts, it's a government action against somebody. And that's the case there. Then there's the E. Jean Carroll Part Due trial, which is going to be in January. And then later on in January, there's another trial in New York on a kind of fraud where they said that they improperly induced people to do business with them based on the Trump name. And those are kind of minor issues compared to criminal trials, which there are two scheduled and one that may be upcoming. So there is a New York case, a false business records case, which is the preposterous case we've spoken about before in
Stormy Daniels payment case, Alvin Bragg, DA.
Right. And then there's the federal criminal, the sort of Mar-a-Lago raid case, if people think about it that way, the documents handling case, which has, I think, I'm not even going to speculate when the current trial date is if they moved it, but that's going to be advanced at some point in the future. We don't really know when that will go to trial, but certainly it won't be in a couple weeks here. And then
I believe that the last I heard from that was that it was going to be in May 2024, but there's a lot that could change between now and then.
I wouldn't buy your plane tickets to the federal
not
courthouse
just
in
yet.
Miami just yet. Yeah, and then we're speculating, or not we're speculating, but there is a great deal of speculation, and the people who get the leaks seem to be speculating that Mr. Jack Smith, the independent counsel, is going, or special prosecutor is going to indict Donald Trump on some kind of charge emanating from what happened at the Capitol on January the 6th. Now, those of us who examined Mr. Trump's actions that are publicly available for what he did on January 6th, and then look at the federal law, might say, what possible crime could you charge him with? And, I say this without trying to denigrate Mr. Smith. If you're willing to bend and push and pull and do whatever you can to try to, fit behavior into culpability that the law was not intended to address when it was passed, then the world's your oyster. And I expect that there are a number of provisions that, again, if you're not trying to be strictly adhering to the reason for a criminal law's institution.
Almost certainly a piracy charge coming up there for Donald Trump. Now, this thing with Mr. Smith, this is actually coming on the heels of the impeachment, isn't it? The second impeachment of Donald Trump, because the House recommended that the DOJ follow up on charges based on their findings during the impeachment trial, and this seems to be an extension of that. Now, do we know for sure one way or the other whether it is or not, or is this new possible indictment because Jack Smith found something while he was investigating something else? Or don't we know?
I have absolutely no idea.
Right, well, let's play a hypothetical game here.
And I think that it's wrong to consider it a foregone conclusion that Donald Trump will be indicted based on January 6th, the events of, because, boy, another kind of staggering trip down ignoring norms and what is the non-political case for indicting Donald Trump? It doesn't seem like there is one, right? Like, we can't have that happen again. What, a president of the United States encourage? I mean,
Let's get to my hypothetical game here, Scott. Now, Kevin McCarthy recently said that he's pondering, or words to the effect that he's pondering doing an impeachment or launching an impeachment investigation into Joe Biden and the various things that are happening with his family.
He's considering honoring his promise to the
apparently
to the independent-minded Republicans who extracted a promise from him that he would, in fact, institute an impeachment investigation if they voted for him for speaker.
Oh no, I'm fully aware of Mr. McCarthy's motivations, or what apparent motivation. But now let's say that does go ahead, and the impeachment inquiry comes up with a recommendation that is ultimately that the DOJ needs to launch its own investigation into Joe Biden based on the findings of the impeachment inquiry. As was apparently the case with Jack Smith. Now, I just want to have a question for you here. Now, with Trump facing the likely indictment, how will this work? Would Joe Biden direct Joe Biden's DOJ to launch an investigation into Joe Biden?
Well, of course not, I think, is the answer. And also, the impeachment committee or an impeachment bill that directs the DOJ to do anything has as much weight as if you and I right now type up a letter to the DOJ and demand that they do something. The DOJ is an executive body, and it works for the president of the United States to do his bidding within the law, we hope, but has, what a senator or congressman thinks of, they can address when they fund the DOJ, and they can address when they pass laws that DOJ personnel are to follow. But the idea that they can address or direct DOJ investigations, absolutely out of bounds. That is an executive function, has nothing whatsoever to do with the legislature.
And it seems very unlikely that a sitting president would direct his agencies to investigate himself. I think that's almost impossible, isn't it, Scott?
Well, I mean, I just don't see it happening with Mr. Biden. I mean, it's possible, but
with Joe Biden, pretty much anything's possible. Scott DeXenza, thanks ever so much for being here.
Cheers.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.